They said bullets could not catch him. They said he vanished into thin air. In the mid-1980s, a name echoed through Benin City, Edo State, with dread and fascination: Lawrence Nomanyagbon Anini, called the Law. Few criminals in Nigerian history have inspired both fear and myth like Anini, whose reign of terror made him a living legend long before his capture. Stories spread through the bustling streets that he was untouchable, that no law could bind him, and that he walked as if protected by spirits. Those rumors were not just gossip, they became part of the aura that made him a household name across Nigeria, whispered in awe and fear at every market, park, and gathering. Anini was born in 1960 in a small village about 20 miles outside Benin City. He moved to the city as a young man, learned to drive, and became a skilled taxi driver known for his calm demeanor and sharp instincts. In the chaotic motor parks of Benin City, he earned respect among drivers and touts who saw him as a mediator between rival groups. Little did they know, this calm navigator would soon take a darker path. His early years as a driver built his reputation and connections, but they also exposed him to the underbelly of urban life, where crime and corruption thrived side by side. Before long, Anini began working with criminal gangs, transporting stolen goods and fugitives across the dusty roads of Bendel State. His skill behind the wheel made him invaluable, and his calm authority made him a natural leader. But he grew tired of being just a driver. Inspired by the wealth and fear commanded by gang leaders, he decided to form his own crew. By the mid-1980s, he gathered men like Monday Osunbor, Friday Ofege, Henry Ekponwan, Philip Iwebelue, and Prince Kingsley Eweka. Together, they began by hijacking cars and robbing buses, but soon their ambition grew beyond simple theft. Under Anini's leadership, the gang became more organized and daring. They did not simply steal goods, they took lives and challenged the very authority of the state. Their crimes escalated from petty theft to armed robbery, bank heists, and violent clashes with law enforcement. Every successful job made them bolder and more notorious. Rumors of supernatural protection began to spread. Some claimed Anini could vanish at will. Others said police bullets could not harm him. But these were exaggerations born from fear and myth rather than truth. As the gang expanded their operations not just in Benin City but across neighboring towns, Anini's reputation grew into legend. People feared the sound of his name as much as the sound of gunshots at night. His influence was not limited to criminals. Even ordinary citizens spoke of him with a mix of horror and curiosity. Some youth admired his audacity, others trembled at the thought of encountering him. This was the world Anini forged, one where lawlessness reigned and fear held the reins.
By 1986, Lawrence Anini and his gang had transformed from local hijackers into one of Nigeria's most feared criminal networks. They struck with extreme violence and strategic precision, targeting banks and police alike. In August 1986, one of their most shocking attacks occurred at First Bank in Sabongada, Ora, where the robbery left a trail of blood and destroyed the sense of safety that once existed. Eyewitnesses recounted how the gang moved with chilling coordination, firing at anyone in their way and escaping before law enforcement could respond. The gang's violence was not limited to property, it shattered lives. Reports linked Anini's crew to the killings of police officers who dared to stop them at checkpoints or pursue them on the highways. In one confirmed incident, 2 police officers on duty were shot while attempting to halt Anini's vehicle, escalating the gang's notoriety and drawing nationwide attention. Stories circulated that Anini even ambushed senior police figures, leaving officials terrified to confront him directly. As his crimes escalated, so did the myth surrounding him. Some residents claimed Anini could drive at unbelievable speeds, evade capture through supernatural means, or even disappear before officers' eyes. These stories spread not because they were true, but because fear blurs fact with rumor. In towns and villages beyond Benin City, Anini's name became synonymous with danger and intrigue, inspiring both fear and warped awe, especially among youth who had never seen his face but had heard his legend. Regular citizens went about their lives with caution, never knowing when the gang might strike next. Markets became quieter after dusk, families kept doors locked early, and travelers avoided routes where Anini's gang had been sighted. The terror did not arise merely from the crimes themselves, but from the unpredictability and boldness with which they were executed. Anini's gang struck where least expected and vanished before authorities could respond, feeding the sense that they were untouchable. Meanwhile, rumors circulated about corruption within the police force itself. Later, during trial proceedings, it was revealed that some senior officers may have provided logistic support and information to Anini's gang, including key details about enforcement operations. One inspector implicated was named George Iyamu, accused by Anini and others of leaking police plans and even benefiting from stolen loot. These revelations deepened the sense of betrayal felt by a public already struggling to understand how one gang could evade capture for so long.
After months of terror, the tide began to turn. On 3 December 1986, a crucial citizen tip-off brought law enforcement to a modest house, number 26 Oyamosa Street, Benin City. A 10-man team led by Superintendent Kayode Uwanrero surrounded the property where Anini was hiding. Inside were Anini and 6 women. The atmosphere was tense, and the menacing aura that had followed him for months soon met the harsh glare of reality. When police knocked and demanded entry, Anini was caught off guard. According to accounts, he attempted to bluff his way out, even suggesting he was hiding under a bed. But in the chaos that followed, one officer grew impatient and fired at Anini's leg, shattering it. The bullet tore through muscle and bone, and within hours, doctors at a military hospital determined the leg needed amputation. The invincible man was now confined to a wheelchair, a dramatic fall from the myth he had built. The nation watched as a man once untouchable now lay injured and helpless. General Ibrahim Babangida, Nigeria's military head of state, demanded a speedy trial and justice for a frightened public. Newspapers dissected every detail, and television broadcasted images that once seemed impossible: the notorious Anini, captured and in custody. People who had feared him began to shout his name in disbelief. Here was the criminal who had haunted dreams, now struggling to sit upright in a courtroom wheelchair. During the trial, the amputation and his inability to walk did not stop Anini from speaking. Through interpreters and his own broken English, he made shocking allegations, including naming officers like George Iyamu as collaborators. These accusations rocked the proceedings and led to multiple convictions of police officers for their roles in aiding the gang. The trial became more than a criminal case. It was a public reckoning with corruption inside the very institution tasked with protecting citizens. Judge James Omoagege presided over the dramatic case, delivering sentences that shocked and satisfied a long-suffering nation. Anini and several of his accomplices were convicted on charges of armed robbery, murder, and conspiracy. Listening from his wheelchair, Anini once shouted at a police accomplice in court, calling him a shameless liar, a reminder that even in defeat he remained defiant. Yet the court's decision was firm. The reign of terror would meet its end in the ultimate sentence.
On 29 March 1987, in Benin City, Lawrence Anini and several members of his gang were executed by firing squad. This moment, broadcast and reported throughout the region, marked the final chapter of a saga that once held an entire state in fear. The execution was a public affirmation of justice, but also a chilling reminder of how thin the line had been between law and lawlessness during Anini's reign. For many citizens, the news was relief. The nightmare was finally over. Families who locked their doors at dusk no longer feared gunshots outside their homes. But others grappled with complex feelings. Some remembered the way Anini once scattered cash in villages after robberies, a gesture that brought him a strange sort of folk hero status among the poor. Yet this generosity was inseparable from violence and death, and such memories were painful and conflicted. Lawrence Anini's story left a mark on Nigeria's history of crime, law enforcement, and justice. His actions forced public discussion about corruption within the police force and how such corruption could enable violent crime to flourish. After his capture and the convictions that followed, many hoped the justice system would be strengthened and that similar reigns of terror would never happen again. Still, questions lingered about the conditions that allowed such a crisis to occur in the first place. The legacy of Anini is not merely one of fear, but of reflection. His life illustrates how social grievances, corruption, and unchecked criminal networks can destabilize entire communities. The lesson is clear. A society that tolerates corruption and inequality risks empowering individuals who lash out in violence. It also shows the importance of accountable law enforcement and community engagement in preventing crime before it spirals out of control. Pulse Nigeria. Lawrence Anini will forever be remembered in Nigeria's history, not as a hero, not as a ghost, but as a complex figure whose life revealed deep social and institutional cracks. His story reminds us that fear can grow when systems fail, and that justice must be visible and fair to restore trust. In telling this story, we confront the past to better understand how to protect the future.